Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bearded Mystic podcast, and I'm your host Rahul N Singh. So today it's a very interesting day when I think about spirituality and the way things are today, the way people are spiritual, how people approach spirituality, and why I feel that if you are casually doing spiritual stuff, like you may go to the temple very occasionally, you may pick up the Gita now and then, you may listen to a talk on YouTube now and then, or you may listen to talks regularly. But the question would be is, what do you do with those thoughts that you listen to? What do we do with those lessons that we learn? Are we applying it to our life? For example, if I am learning a lesson about forgiveness, how many times have I kind of taken a step back from forgiving someone? And when I take that step back, is it because I feel that the other person isn't reciprocating my feelings, they're not understanding, and they keep making the same mistake again and again? Or is it because of some other kind of something in my ego, some pride that I'm not addressing? So there's things like that. That's a quick example. We can go deep into the weeds of what is awareness and what is consciousness, what are we, what's our true nature, is there a self, is there not a self? All that stuff is all good, but it comes down to how serious we are when it comes to spirituality. Now, I'm not talking about you go into silence and you're really serious about what I mean is that you don't lose the juice of life from being spiritual. A lot of people think if you're spiritual, it means like you're giving up kind of worldly pleasures. No, you don't give up worldly pleasures. You just know that they're temporary in nature. So the happiness they give is not going to be the complete happiness. And when it comes to spirituality, a lot of times I feel we look for excuses of why we don't want to get serious into it. Like, I have a family. How can I be detached from my family? How can I learn to discern between right and wrong when I need to go up the corporate ladder? And you see, all those things that I'm talking about now, they're big things for us, right? Or we have a business, we're like, how can we focus on spirituality when we need to make sure our business is making money and all that? When we have a family, we think, how can we focus on spirituality when our kids are young? So we constantly find reasons why not to be spiritual, or why to avoid being serious about it or going deeper into it. So my fundamental question is, are we true seekers? And unless you're a true seeker, only then will spirituality kind of show its fruits. I'm not saying that if you're, a casual spiritual seeker, it's not going to affect you. Of course, there'll be some positives that you will obviously get. It'll be like the residue of something, or it'd be like, somebody's drank a glass of juice and you just have a sip left. And from that sip, you're thinking you drank the whole glass. The seeker is the one that will drink the whole glass, and they will attain what needs to be attained. But the one that takes a sip, and they keep on taking a sip and a sip and a sip, that's what causes lifetimes of constant seeking, until that final life when they realize that samsara is not enough for them. They want to get mukti from this, moksha from it. That's the most important thing. And to get that freedom is important. And that's why we then want awakening experiences, maybe, or maybe we want full enlightenment. The fundamental thing is to just check where we are and our intentions in being spiritual. And like I said, if it's a casual thing where we're not applying it to our day-to-day life, and we're not kind of dealing with the basics, remember the prerequisites we've talked about on this podcast. If you need to have that vivek, vairagya, you need to have the 6 kind of inner qualities, and then being desirous for the truth. If you're not doing those things, at least even as a little bit, we will not be able to control our mind. We will go wherever the senses tell us to go. Our worldview is going to be external, not the internal. And until we look back at the internal, the external world is going to fascinate us, and it's going to take us on its own journey. So this is what I mean by, are we truly serious? Do we truly want to feel that happiness that is beyond the senses? Do we want to feel that happiness that is not attached to an object? Every other happiness we've been seeking is after an object, whether that's some car or home or some watch or whatever, smartphone, to our relationships, to the position we have. Everything is external. But what about that inner wealth that we have, that we are? It's like we are people who are, say, billionaires, but we still looking to win the lottery. And we don't know what we have, what wealth we already have. And that's what happens in spirituality. We have the highest truth. We have the highest truth as Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Tattvamasi, you are that. Whichever way you want to look at it. See, you can look at it in 2 ways. Either you can look at it as I am Brahman. Or you can look at it as Tattvamasi, you are that. That meaning the self. Now, is the self an object that you're getting? No. How can you, for example, if I tell you to be yourself, I'm not asking you to add anything. I'm not asking you to become something. I'm not asking you to do a certain thing and then you will know yourself. No. Simply by, as I mentioned yesterday, being in the awareness of I am, the awareness before I am, shall I say, that's what you fundamentally are. And when we, I was trying to get it across, but I feel like sometimes I'm not understood, and that's fine. But let's understand, there's one thing being aware of the objects externally, even the objects internally, of thought, of emotion, sensations, feelings, all that stuff, memory. There's the internal witness of that. But in order to be aware of that witness, you have to let go of every object, every content is contentless. Every quality is qualityless. Even you have to let go of the idea that there's energy there. Because we say energy is formless. You have to let go of everything. You even have to let go of the notion of I am awareness. The I am and awareness both have to disappear, because if you're remembering I am awareness, that's going back to words. We have to go prior to the words to what is. And that is something you cannot deny when we go on that spiritual journey. And it's possible we may get a taste of this, and then we see that flashy car and we're like, you know what, I want to go for that car. We see an attractive person, then we want to chase that attractive person. We see this and that, and we want to achieve that. We want to get that. And it's possible that this can happen, that we get a glimpse, even the glimpse of even being aware of objects. When you even create that separation, even that has a hint of happiness, because you're getting a taste of what this nature is. That's why we say Sat Chit Anand. So the being that we're talking about, the true being, the true existence, what you are, this Brahman, this I-ness, again, it's objectless. Don't make it into a person. It's not a separate self. It's the only self. Yeah, it's not, there's not one self here and then the self there, and it's just one self. When I forgot my train of thought. But yeah, if we are aware, even if we are aware of an object, there's a certain happiness we get from that. But if we're being Satchitananda, if we're being the existence of, and then we know that existence is consciousness, so we know its nature, we know the beingness, and then Ananda, it is true happiness, meaning it's complete. Nothing else can make you this happy because it's happiness itself. So what object is going to make that happy? How can you make if the objectless, meaning the subject, is happiness itself, or bliss itself, how can you bring bliss to it? You can't bring bliss to it when its nature is blissful. And this is the teachings we find when we do a lot of these talks that I do now with you every day. A lot of it is just neti, just getting rid of what you're not, and then just staying in what you are already. Rediscovering that this is what you've always been. You've been on this rat race with samsara, going through lifetime after lifetime, accumulating vasanas after vasanas. You get a new samskara and you build it into a vasana. You're constantly in that cycle. And then you meet a teacher. You meet a realized being, an enlightened person who says, you know what? All this thing that you're accumulating is veiling who you really are. Let's start unveiling. Let's start removing those covers which is hiding your true self. When we talk about this self, if I may use this word, and don't get attached to the word, just look at where it's pointing to. This being is transparent. So even if you have the world around you, this body even, this true self is transparent. You don't know you're in it until you know you're in it. Then you can't escape it. There's no way. You just want to remain in this state at all times. And that's what you can achieve from spirituality if you're serious about it. Meaning when I say serious, meaning that you are willing to be a competent seeker. That means inquire, question. You must ask those questions. You must find the logic in the teachings. If you don't find the logic in the teachings, then really all we're doing is attending something, but all we're doing is marking our attendance. It's like you can go to school, you can mark your attendance, but doesn't mean that you're actually learning. Yeah, that's what you gotta look at, and that's what I have to do. Every day is, am I willing to keep going at it? I have been in the company of enlightened beings, who I consider enlightened. And never once have they said to me, they've never said, I'm the only enlightened person, everyone else is less enlightened. Never heard them say that. If they've ever recognized another enlightened being, they say it's an enlightened being. That's number one thing I've seen and I've recognized and I've honored. 2, there's a certain level of humility. Even if they're enlightened, they never make you feel like you're in ignorance. If you realize that when you're with them, it's like you want to learn. You know, it's like you just want to be getting that nectar from them. You know it's sweet. You just want to keep consuming that sweetness by being in their company. And then the other aspect is that their kindness is so wonderful. How kind they are and how giving they are with their knowledge. So ultimately, well, I want to say that if you are doing anything remotely spiritual and you've been going to a temple, been going to a guru, whoever, whatever it may be, you've been going to a particular place, but you feel that you're stagnant, it's time to ask for help. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're not going to be losing loyalty points. Asking for help means that you're willing to do the work to get to that place of Jeevan Mukti. And if we're not working towards that, then we're not really being spiritual. Let me make this very clear. Jeevan Mukti is the whole reason why we want to be enlightened. If there's any other reason why we want to be enlightened, for example, you want to be enlightened so you can show you're better than somebody because you're enlightened. Then egos come back in and you haven't achieved. That means you're still bound. It's all about being enlightened and not being bound by it, being free from even that idea that I'm enlightened. This is what is meant by beyond enlightenment, meaning even the identity of being enlightened is shallow, very shallow. When we say, oh, I'm enlightened, it's shallow. I'm self-realized, shallow. Again, we've got stuck in a word, in a pointing. And instead, when it's like this is a good example. If you have a fish in a bowl and that fish has been swimming in that bowl for many years, then the owner says, you know what, fish, it's time for you to explore the ocean. So the owner takes the fish, pours the bowl into the ocean, and then he comes back a few years later and he sees that to the same spot, and he finds a fish swimming in that same space, even though there's a vast ocean, but still swimming in that same circumference, same kind of space, is not being able to go beyond. That's all that happens when we're enlightened, but we make an ego out of it. So you have two spectrums that I've talked about today. One, when you claim enlightenment, yet there's ego still there. You're just that fish in the ocean, but you're swimming in the same place. You haven't explored the ocean, meaning you've not realized that the ocean is what you are. If the fish realize that, then the fish will be able to explore the ocean. Meaning it will see the vastness of the ocean, the vastness of being, the vastness of consciousness. And same thing if we look at people who just occasionally, casually do spirituality. And number one thing, I never understand this, but if spirituality is just about if you think spirituality without self-realization is about being a good human being, you misunderstood what self-realization really is. Self-realization will automatically make you a decent human being. You cannot wrong anybody. This is if you continuously be aware of your vasanas, of your latent tendencies. We may find that people, they become enlightened, but they have those latent tendencies that are still there. Because, that work still has to occur. Realizing I am Brahman is an instant realization. It can be instant. If you look at the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna gives Arjuna the knowledge, and he gives the knowledge straight away. Second chapter. First words are the Atma Gyan, the knowledge of the Atman. But if you look, Arjuna has to ask questions. Arjuna has to seek the answers. He has to do that work because the vasanas are still there. He's had the realization that there's only the Atman, the self that's in all, the self that cannot be cut, the self that cannot be burnt, the self that cannot be dried. We know that verse, that self which does not die, which is eternal, which has been eternal since beyond the beginning. This is what I mean. The vasanas will still be there for Arjuna. He has to work on those vasanas. And this is the way to understand why even after enlightenment, even after self-realization, after knowing who you really are, there's still work to do. And don't feel any shame in that. Do not feel any shame. It's absolutely normal. Think about it. I'll give a classic example. Nisargadatta Maharaj. Now, his teachings, I Am that book, I Am That, how famous it is, how transformative that book is. Let's not shy away from those words. It's amazing. But the guy used to show anger. Now, it could all be an act. It could be a vasana that he's relatively aware of. But that doesn't mean that he's not self-realized. Of course, it still means he's self-realized, and he just has a vasana of anger. Now, is he working on that? Most likely he is. Do we know if he's putting on an act? We don't know. Yeah? We can't say today, meaning I can't know that for sure. But yes, this is the ultimate thing I wanted to say. So I guess it was an interesting episode today, but just remember these things. And if you have any questions, let me know. If you want to join my Discord, make sure you do. Link is in the show notes and video description. Like this video, rate and review this podcast on the podcast streaming app. Write a comment if you feel like doing so. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give me as much engagement as you can personally, even if it's just saying thank you on a comment. I'm good with that even. Just it helps other people find out these videos, which is good for the channel. But anyway, I really appreciate you listening. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you on Monday. Take care. Have a great day. Have a great day tomorrow, and may I just have this prayer, and maybe I'll end with this prayer that may everyone that's on this path, even casually, may they realize the highest and realize that the potential that they're looking for is already a reality within them. Okay. Thank you. Namaste.